this beauty would a early day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Would you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please, won't you be my neighbor?
Good morning. I could not find a cardigan, but I dressed down anyway because it seemed appropriate. Just be yourself today. That's what the message of Mr. Rogers is. So welcome all to our very special service. I'll play to that camera today. I think that's the one over there. And very special service honoring not just the life of Mr. Rogers, but really, my gosh, the beauty that he left the world, the better state that he left the world in for being here. But more about that later. And welcome to all of you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, as always, where we join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in the wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. We want to begin, as always, by embracing all that you bring to this space this morning, all of your uniqueness, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences. As Mr. Rogers would say, you're perfect just the way you are. And this is true of those who, of course, hear these heartfelt words each Sunday, as well as those who might be hearing them for the first time today. And it includes those who are in the room with us, as well as those who are streaming with us. And I keep wanting to look at that camera. You're right there. Those who are streaming with us, as well as those who are Zooming with us this morning. So do have a couple of announcements. And real quickly, I'm going to walk over to this candle because I forgot to turn it on. There we go. This is our Unity candle, which, as you know, is something we light. Most of you know anyway, we light when we've lost a member at some point between when we last left, or met, I should say. And this candle today is sadly for two church members. Some of you may not have known Bill Adams. Bill Adams was one of our distant members who lived in Des Moines, Washington. He passed away on May 1st at the age of 89. Bill was an incredible fireball. His health had been bad for some time. The first time I got to meet him in person, of course I've been corresponding with him a bit over email. The first time I got to meet him in person was at the General Assembly in Portland last year, when we were all demonstrating outside of the General Assembly, trying to advocate for being heard. And there he was, wheelchair and all, his scooter, I should say, and protesting with the small band of us that showed up. So really, really wonderful guy, and he just lived his beliefs and pursued his values right up to the end. And I'm sad that I didn't get to know him longer, that some of you didn't get to meet him at all, but he was a member of this church as well as the Saltwater Unitarian Church on the west side of the state. So we think about him, his family, and all of his friends who are missing him at this time. Also, I don't know how many of you might know or remember Adele Hurst. Adele was also a member of our congregation who's not been here for some time. You probably know her most as the former partner of Jacob Johns. They started coming to church together and joined the church together, and Adele passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, a couple of weeks ago. So Jacob called to let me know, or texted me to let me know, and wanted a candle, and I thought we would include her in our Unity candle. So, too young, and so we think of her and her family and her friends and Jacob and everyone who grieves her loss at this time as well. So I also want to mention, before we get too far into the service, that today's very special service would not be possible were it not for my beautiful wife, Peggy, who is responsible for everything you see here. Yes. Giving us a touch of the neighborhood of make-believe and the puppets that we'll be using during the service, with the exception of X the Owl, were also handmade by Peggy. So look forward to introducing you to everybody in just a little bit. But Peggy, thank you so much. Yes. She loved doing it, but gosh, a lot of work. So thank you. All right. Let's see. Okay, this is an important one. A couple of important ones. Actually, June 4th will be our annual meeting, 12:30 after service. That's a time where we approve the budget, where we elect new board officers and pass amendments if there's any of those presented as well. So please show up for that. We'll need a quorum for it to be legit. So please plan on that, June 4th. And also another important one, June 10th will be the big Pride parade and event at the park, and our Social Justice Coordinating Council is looking for volunteers to help staff the booth, our church booth at that. So if you would like to help in any way, you can sign up at the social justice table that is displayed in the back, and Nancy's actually here this morning as well, somebody that you could say, hey, I want in, or something. So thank you very much. Now, I know I'm forgetting another big thing about today, right, is it is Mother's Day. For a moment. Thank you. Okay. Anyway, I was about to say, before I was so rudely interrupted, that happy Mother's Day from me, but I'm going to actually turn that over to Stephanie to make an announcement about our religious education program, but also to give a special word to the mothers in our lives, whoever they might be.
So I have found a short reading in celebration of this day, and it was written by Leah Onigri. On Mother's Day, let us mark how beautiful and complex it can be to mother and be mothered. To those who have mothered, we thank you. To those who rejoice in the work, the role, the presence of mothering and mothers, we celebrate you. To those who are in the thick of parenting children of any age, we appreciate you. To those who have lost their mothers, we grieve with you. To those who are single moms, grandmoms, stepmoms, foster moms, adoptive moms, mentor moms, and spiritual moms, we need you. And to those who are pregnant with new life, both expected and surprising, we anticipate with you. May we reflect with gratitude on the wide spectrum of mothering that happens in our lives and in our communities. So happy Mother's Day. I do have a couple of announcements from the Religious Education Department. One is that next Sunday you will see a little swimming pool replica at the back table at the social justice table, because the kids have helped contribute to the creation of this fundraising project for the Spokane Parks Foundation Make a Splash program. And you'll hear a little bit later today about how Mr. Rogers, what'd you say, he helped make a splash in his own way in regards to swimming pools. But there are too many kids in Spokane who are turned away from our free public swimming pools because they don't have swimsuits. There, as you may have heard, is a shortage of lifeguards. There are kids who just don't have access to these wonderful resources in our community and who don't have the skills to be safe in those pools. And so the Spokane Parks Foundation is raising money to fill those gaps, and you get to be a part of that. So check out that little swimming pool at the social justice table starting next week. The fundraiser will run through the end of June. In June, school lets out and the kids are all excited to be in those swimming pools. And at UUCS, we transitioned from Children's Chapel to Play Club. And I'm looking at Lynn and Shane. We couldn't have Play Club without you and your beautiful playground that you helped construct. But it's really unstructured, multi-age, free play outdoors with minimal interference from the adult supervisors. But we do, of course, need an adult supervisor or two every Sunday. And so if you are interested in signing up, it's just 40 minutes, one Sunday of the summer. Bring a friend, hang out in the gazebo, and be there in case a true emergency arrives. But basically, you get to let the kids be kids and do the important work of play that Mr. Rogers, of course, taught us all about. So you can sign up online. You can find the announcement in the Sun, or let me know if you're interested after service. Is that it? One more thing.
I forgot to say, I'm so sorry to have almost left out our Zoom attendees. I always like to say hi to you. So let's see. There they are. Oh, we've got a good group up on there. Terry, are you leading the charge today? Are you hosting?
I am, Todd, and I'm really glad to be here with Mr. Rogers, and we've got some young kids. If you can see Katie's kids there waving away.
Oh my gosh, yes, we'll wave back at you. There, I'll wave to the right camera. Well, we're so glad all of you came, and there, the folks in the room are waving at you too. So great to have all of you, and we're looking forward to the service this morning on a very special service. So we will move forward with that. Now, by the way, I'm glad to have the audio problems worked out on Zoom so we can hear you loud and clear. So Todd Milne, thanks for figuring that out for us. Yay!
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I think it is time for our chalice lighting. Yeah. We've got so many papers up here. That's okay. All right, as always, the chalice is a symbol of our faith, a symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found. Now, is it possible for me to get that other microphone? Oh, you have it. Battery's good. Okay, so there you go. Thank you. On them. Not the best day to wear an untucked shirt. Be on now. There, good, okay. All right. It does take us a little bit to set things up because we've got so much paperwork up here.
It's right here.
There it is, okay. All right, let me see. Just going to move all this for now then. Okay, we'll just use these 3 sheets. We couldn't memorize this. There was too many of them. Oh yeah, no, we're not going to spread them out. There, good, okay. It's only 4 pages long. I don't know why. Okay. Okay. Can you see that okay?
I can.
Good? All right. So Fred McFeely Rogers, for those who remember a couple of characters named Mr. and Mrs. McFeely on the show, you know where McFeely came from. Fred McFeely Rogers, the man we all came to know affectionately as Mr. Rogers, was born on March 20th, 1928 in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. He died 20 years ago on February 27th, 2003 at age 75.
We still miss Mr. Rogers today and wonder if he were still with us, how he might help all of us, especially children, deal with some of today's most difficult issues, like climate change and mass shootings.
Mr. Rogers cared deeply about children and understood that their feelings are every bit as powerful as adult feelings and should be taken just as seriously by all of us. That's why he addressed some of the most troubling social issues and crises of the day on his beloved PBS series, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Although Fred Rogers had been involved in children's television programming since 1954, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood didn't start airing until 1968, right in the middle of the Vietnam War. And that was an issue he addressed throughout the show's very first week.
Mr. Rogers began his career as a producer and puppeteer for another show called The Children's Corner. So he'd been using puppets to help children talk about difficult subjects like war and death for a long time. Although he never appeared in the neighborhood of make-believe himself, Fred Rogers was the voice and puppeteer of all the puppets who became familiar characters on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
In the episode I just mentioned, King Friday is afraid of change and has ordered that the neighborhood of make-believe be surrounded by a fence made of barbed wire. And a soldier putting up the fence sings, "Oh, it's very sharp, oh my, barbed wire is very sharp."
Then King Friday appears and says, "Remember the battle cry, down with the changers."
Down with the changers, down with the changers. We don't want anything to change.
'Cause we're on top.
That's right, 'cause we're, at least you're, on top.
Down below, Daniel Tiger and X the Owl are having a conversation in which Daniel says, this is hard to do with 2 hands, "I want there to be peace in this neighborhood. It's been really hard for everybody." And X the Owl says, "I really do hope it'll work out like you say."
Then, with the help of Lady Aberlin, they send up balloons to float over the castle with words like love, tenderness, peaceful coexistence attached to them, so that Great Uncle Friday will know that everyone in the neighborhood wants peace.
At first, King Friday thinks that they're paratroopers and shouts, "Sound the alarm! Sound the alarm!"
But once he sees the notes and realizes what they say, he says,
"Stop all the fighting! Stop all fighting!"
and the barbed wire fence is taken down, and peace is restored to the neighborhood of make-believe.
In 1969, there was a story on the news in which the manager of a hotel began pouring dangerous chemicals into its swimming pool because some black protesters were in it swimming with white people, and in those days it was illegal for black people to swim in the same pools as white people.
It was an awful rule, and Mr. Rogers was very upset by it. So on May 9th, 1969, he invited Officer Clemens, a black policeman from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, to share a small pool with him in his backyard.
"It's so warm, I was just putting some water on my feet," Mr. Rogers says. "Would you like to join me?"
"That looks awfully enjoyable," Officer Clemens said, "but I don't have a towel or anything."
"Well, you can share mine," Mr. Rogers said, which was itself quite a statement. So they cooled their feet off together in the same pool right there on public television, so a whole generation of kids could see that there's nothing wrong with black people and white people swimming together and being friends together.
It turns out the actor who played Officer Clemens, whose real name was Francois Clemens, happened to be a gay man, which was also something most people didn't like in those days. After he'd been seen at a club for gay people, Mr. Rogers told him it couldn't happen anymore, and that if he came out as openly gay, he wouldn't be able to be on the show anymore.
That wasn't because Mr. Rogers didn't like that he was gay, but in those days people were so prejudiced against gay people that they would not have stood for a gay man being on a children's television show, and the entire program would have been canceled.
On the show, he would say, "I love you just the way you are," Francois Clemens remembers. And one day, neither of us can get through this part. And one day I said, "Fred, were you talking to me?" And he looked at me and he said, "Yes, I've been talking to you for 2 years, and you finally heard me today." And I just collapsed into his arms. I started crying. That's when I knew I loved him.
No man had ever told me that he loved me like that, Francois Clemens says. I needed to hear it all my life. My dad never told me, my stepfather never told me. So from then on, Mr. Rogers became my surrogate father.
Mr. Rogers helped children deal with lots of big issues on his little show. The assassination of Bobby Kennedy, the explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger, the threat of nuclear war, and so many other matters that can be just as disturbing to kids as anyone else.
Mr. Rogers' neighborhood did a lot of good for a lot of kids, most of whom grew into better adults because of the show, which was on for 33 years, from 1968 until 2001. But it almost ended right before it began, or right after it began. Remember that it started during the Vietnam War, which was costly in many more ways than one.
It was only a year before its debut that President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Public Broadcasting Act in 1967. "How will man use his miracles?" President Johnson said. "The answer just begins with public television. We want most of all to enrich man's spirit. That is the purpose of this act."
But after Richard Nixon became president in 1969, he wanted to divert more money to the war by taking it away from public broadcasting. Mr. Rogers went to Washington to ask the Communications Committee not to take away the $20 million PBS needed to survive, which was a lot of money way back then. But the chair of the committee was Senator John Pastore, who didn't much care for television and had already made his feelings clear about it. There didn't seem to be much hope for PBS or Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
But when it was Mr. Rogers' turn to speak, Pastore almost immediately warmed up. "Senator Pastore," said Mr. Rogers, "this is the philosophical statement to read, and would take about 10 minutes to read, so I'll not do that. One of the first things that a child learns in a healthy family is trust, and I trust what you have said, that you will read this."
Right after Mr. Rogers had written his statement, Senator Pastore said he didn't want anyone reading any more statements, and to just turn them in and he'd look at them later. But in a softened voice, he asked Mr. Rogers, "Would it make you happy if you read it?"
"I'd just like to talk about it if it's all right. This is what I give. I give an expression of care every day to each child, help him realize that he is unique. I end the program by saying, you made this day a special day just by your being you. There's no person in the whole wide world just like you. And I like you just the way you are. And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we would have done a great service."
Mr. Rogers then asked, "Can I tell you the words to one of the songs that I think is very important?"
"Yes," the senator said.
This has to do with that good feeling of control, which I feel that children need to know is there. And it starts out with, "What do you do with the mad that you feel?" And that first line came straight from a child, he said. "I work with children doing puppets and very personal communication in small groups. What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite?" when the whole wide world seems oh so wrong and nothing you do seems very right. It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think this song. I can stomp when I want to, can stomp when I wish, and stomp, stomp, stomp any time. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can.
I think that's wonderful, Senator Pastore said. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you've just earned your $20 million. And this is why we still have public broadcasting and have so many important children's programs like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Sesame Street, Arthur, Kratz Creatures, Reading Rainbow, and dozens more to this day.
If you want to know more about Mr. Rogers' life, if you've not seen it, I recommend you watch the excellent documentary about him on Netflix, Have Your Box of Kleenex. Why is it that things that are good and beautiful make us cry? I don't understand. It's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? But we're going to conclude this part of our service by letting you know something else that's interesting about him. Mr. Rogers weighed himself every day throughout his adult life. And every day he weighed exactly the same, 143 pounds. And it always made him happy because it reminded him of the phrase, I love you. I has just one letter, love has 4 letters, and you has 3 letters. 143, I love you.
And there's nobody who tried harder to teach us all the importance of loving each other, of loving our neighbors, and of loving ourselves than Fred Rogers.
Thank you.
Well, this service is filled with music that Fred Rogers wrote. And he had a very nice baritone voice, and he sang a lot in his programming. So I'm going to teach you a little short song that he composed, and it's a very, 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 very short song. Okay. So I'm going to sing it once, and I'd like you to join me for a couple times through. Today is a very special day. A very, very, very special day. A very, 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 very special day. Come along with me, here we go. Today is a very special day. A very, very, very special day. A very, 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 very special day. Why? Because we're together. Let's do it again. Today is a very special day. A very, very, very special day. A very, 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 very special day.
We're going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds, and I want to begin today with a candle, as we have been, on behalf of the people of Ukraine and that region of the world suffering from the terrible war that is going on there. Also want to kindle a candle for my friend and a friend to our community, Reverend Walter Kendricks, the pastor of Morning Star Baptist Church, who's dealing with some health issues these days. He has a good prognosis, but I told him we're lighting a candle for you anyway. And Reverend Kendricks is one of those guys that says, don't worry, I got this. I'm good. So Reverend Happy Watkins, also a good friend of our congregation, a good friend of mine, retired pastor of New Hope Baptist Church, continues to deal with degrees of pain. He's been in pain for a lot of reasons for several years now, and some days are better than not, and he can't seem to get that under control. So, you know, some of you might know what it's like to live in with some form of chronic pain. So Happy calls me every now and then and says, light one of those candles for me. Those things work. So we're kindling a candle for Happy too. So let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
You can never go down, can never go down, can never go down the drain. You can never go down, can never go down, can never go down the drain. You're bigger than the water, you're bigger than the soap, much bigger than all the bubbles, and bigger than your telescope. So you see, you can never go down, can never go down, can never go down the drain. You can never go down, can never go down, can never go down the drain. The rain will go down, but you can't go down. You're bigger than any bathroom drain. You can never go down, can never go down, can never go down the drain.
One of the interesting things about Mr. Rogers' program was the space and silence that he regularly made part of his show. He was very troubled with children's programming for the most part. It had lots of noise, and people got hurt, or people were made fun of with pies in the face and these sort of things that made us laugh at each other rather than respect each other. So he tried to do the opposite, and he would take long pauses and do nothing, like change his clothes and put on his shoes and watch a turtle walk across the carpet. One time he used an egg timer to show the kids what a minute looks like. And I could not find an egg timer that worked worth a darn, so we are going to see what a minute looks like on my digital egg timer. Now you know what a minute looks like.
For today's reading, I found something from the Fred Rogers Archives project online, which is just a treasure trove. And every week for his programming, he composed some thoughts for the week. And on episodes 1356 to 1360, Mr. Rogers talks about moving quickly versus moving slowly. He points out that people with the same name are still different people. Later in the week, he talks about the voting process and how elections are about winning and losing. In the neighborhood of make-believe, the neighbors learn that Planet Purple, a planet where everyone is the same, has now changed his rules. And here were his thoughts for those episodes. Being different from one another is part of what makes each of us special. Children, though, often want to be like other people, particularly the people they love. They need time to learn both about the ways we are alike and about the ways each of us is different. It may take a lot of reassurance from grown-ups before they really understand that the people who love us are the ones who like us to be different. Something else that's often hard to learn is that people will love us for who we are, whether we win or lose. Small children often lose when they compete with people who are older. Older children always seem to run faster or play games better. When they're young, children need a grown-up's help to see that they are getting better at doing things as they get older. Most of all, they need grown-ups to let them know they are special just the way they are right now.
It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like. The way you are right now. The way down deep inside you. Not the things that hide you. Not your toys. They're just beside you. But it's you I like. Every part of you. Your skin, your eyes, your feelings. Whether old or new. I hope that you'll remember. Even when you're feeling blue. It's you I like. Yes, you yourself. It's you. It's you I like.
Things are a little different. We have to double check our notes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, hold on, we can't just
Not
go.
yet?
We can't just go to
Oh.
we have to be led into the neighborhood of
That's right. We
make-believe.
can't just go. There needs to be a ritual.
We would almost need to have our trolley take us there.
I think so.
Imagine that. Imagine the trolley taking us into the neighborhood of make-believe. We're trying.
You can almost hear that
Imagine
sound.
harder. Okay.
Believe as the trolley goes by the castle garden in the neighborhood of make-believe.
Now we can transition over. Okay. Can you believe it, Lady Stephanie? We're in the neighborhood of make-believe.
I've always wanted to visit the neighborhood of make-believe, Sir Todd.
Hey, why are you calling me Sir Todd, and why am I calling you Lady Stephanie, Lady Stephanie?
I'm not so sure. Maybe it's because that's how everyone talks in the neighborhood of make-believe, Sir Todd.
Maybe so. Say, it's pretty quiet around here. Shh, you mustn't speak. Did you hear that, Lady Stephanie?
I did. It sounded a little like Daniel Tiger.
It is Daniel Tiger. I've always wanted to meet you, Daniel. I've always wanted to meet you, Sir Todd, and you, Lady Stephanie. But we must stop talking before someone hears us.
How do you know our names? And why can't we talk?
Well, because everyone knows everyone's name in the neighborhood of make-believe, and because King Friday has outlawed all talking in order to keep the peace. Well, that explains why it's so quiet around here, but if you can't speak, how does anybody communicate? We don't. That's why there's so few of us left. Nobody wants to live in a place where they're afraid to talk to each other.
Oh, Daniel, nobody would want to live in such a place. How many of you are left?
Well, let's see. There's King Friday, and there's X the Owl. Oh, and don't forget yourself, Daniel. And who am I forgetting?
What's all the racket? Don't you know there's a law against public speaking?
Lady Elaine Fairchild, I can hardly believe it's you.
Is that my name? It's been so long since I've heard it spoken, I'd almost forgotten.
I don't understand. Why isn't anyone allowed to talk to each other anymore?
I thought talking to about everything, even difficult things, was part of what it means to live in the neighborhood of make-believe.
Well, that's how it used to be. Used to be.
Used to be.
Well, what happened then? Colors. Colors.
Colors. Colors?
It all began the day Daniel said that yellow is the best color in the world. Well, I like yellow flowers. Then I said green is the best color because I like soaring over the open fields.
And I still say you're both wrong. Everyone knows the best color is red because it looks so good on me.
Before long, everyone in the neighborhood was arguing about which color is the best. Until King Friday showed up and declared the best color is royal purple. He then passed the Keep Your Peace law, forbidding us from arguing about colors or anything else ever again.
We were so worried about saying something somebody might disagree with that we just stopped talking to one another. I can't believe people would stop talking to each other just because they disagree about the best color.
What's all that talking I hear? What's all that talking? Oh, Al flew the coop a little bit. It's King Friday. He went off to hide.
I'm staying right here to find out exactly what's going on. And I'm staying right here with you, although maybe a little behind you.
I thought I heard voices. Haven't you heard of the Keep Your Peace law as decreed by your king? I'm afraid I have no choice but to have you all arrested. Arrested? You're kidding me, just for talking? Talking leads to disagreements, and disagreements leads to unrest, and I must keep the peace in my kingdom. Edgar, arrest these people. Edgar? Oh dear, where is Edgar when I need him? Well, I'm afraid Edgar is gone just about everybody else.
They've either been arrested for speaking or left because they want to be free to speak.
I want my friends back. I don't care if they like the color yellow as much as I do or not.
And as long as I can wear clothes that match my complexion, I don't care what anybody says about it. King Friday, preventing freedom of speech may make your kingdom seem peaceful, but it isn't very happy.
Oh, I suppose you're right. I miss hearing the voices of others speaking happily to each other. I miss the voices of Queen Sarah and Henrietta Pussycat and Edgar and X the Owl. I'm still here. From this day forward I decree that the keep your peace law is no more, and everyone shall henceforth be free to speak and disagree whenever they want, so that happiness can return to the neighborhood of make-believe. Now that sounds like a wise decision, King Friday, and now it's time for us to go.
We look forward to meeting everyone else the next time we visit. Goodbye.
Goodbye, goodbye. We got to get back. We can't leave until Charlie takes us. This is how we transition.
So the last song on the programs that Fred did was called It's Such a Good Feeling. So you've been sitting a long time. Why don't we stand up? And this song also has a little interlude in the middle, and there's quotes from what Fred would say in the middle of this song. So you'll see the interlude in, no, it's in the program. Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. It's the last song. It's Such a Good Feeling.
It's such a good feeling by Fred Rogers.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. It's such a good feeling, you know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling, you're growing inside. And when you wake up, ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling, a very, you know that I'll be back when the day is new, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you want to talk about. I will too. You always make each day such a special day. You know how, just by being you. There's only one person in the whole world exactly like you, and that's you yourself. And people can like you exactly the way you are. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling, the feeling you know that we're friends.
To sit down for just a couple more minutes. It's going to be just a little bit longer than usual, and I want you to be able to relax. So the benediction is something that is taken from a valedictorian, or a speech to graduates, I should say, by Mr. Rogers, but it also contains a lot of ideas that he frequently said in groups. And so now, you remember what a minute looks like, right? So keep that in mind, because we're going to use that new skill in just a minute. Mr. Rogers said, "From the time you were very little, you had people who have smiled you into smiling, people who have talked you into talking, sung you into singing, loved you into loving. Let's just take some time to think of those extra special people. Some of them might be right here. Some may be far away. Some may even be in heaven. No matter where they are, deep down you know they've always wanted what was best for you. They've always cared about you beyond measure and have encouraged you to be true to the best within you. Think about somebody who's helped you along the way. For 1 minute, I'm going to time you. Thank you. Now let's stand and sing Shalom.
Shalom.